Finally, after so many pulls, just one more pull, and I'll get that limited for 1 week only super OP can't live without character of my dreams. Just let me go in and buy a little more of that sweet, sweet in-game currency. Wait, what?
Oh man. Oh god. Oh man. Oh god. Oh man. Oh god. Oh man.
So, you guys know how some people see loot boxes, or as we call it gacha, to be a bad thing and compare it to gambling? Well, I've been reading a few articles and forums regarding this topic, and I've noticed these concerns are focused on players who are under the age of consent for gambling. Does that mean players above that age are not affected by these mind-controlling powers of gacha? Well, I'll get into that later. First, let's try to find the defining factors of gambling and determine whether or not gacha should be considered as such. In a few different articles, a Professor Mark Griffiths from Nottingham Trent University seemed to be the main source of reference for a definition. So I read his paper on the subject, and there are 5 main points. Number 1, the exchange is determined by a future event, which at the time of staking money, or something of financial value, the outcome is unknown. Check. Number 2, the result is determined at least partly or wholly by chance. Check. Number 3, the reallocation of wealth, for example, the exchange of money or something of financial value, usually without the introduction of productive work on either side. So from what I managed to gather from other articles, basically that means that money or something of financial value is used to buy the chances. Check. Number 4, losses incurred can be avoided by simply not taking part in the activity in the first place. This one's kind of debatable. You see, sometimes you go into a banner thinking you get something you came for with, I don't know, 1,000 diamonds, depends on what game you're playing. And you end up not getting what you're hoping for, so your account is now 1,000 diamonds poorer, and it seems to be kind of a loss on your part. But you're actually still getting something, it's just probably not what you're looking for, so, you just end up with a bunch of stuff that you didn't want, didn't need, or both. And last of all, the add-on number 5. So I don't know why this isn't like a real number 5. I read the paper and it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and to be added, number 5, blah, 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 blah. So, anyway, doesn't matter. It could be argued that the money or prize to be won should be of greater financial value than the money staked in the first place. So this point does not affect a great majority of mobile games because there is no trade system in almost all of them. Some of the other interesting points involve PEGI ratings, and that they also did not classify this as gambling because a game will only be classified as gambling if it's a gambling game. For example, it's an online slot machine, you use real money and you get a chance to win more real money, then yeah. They also stated that it would probably cause some level of confusion. Imagine going into the App Store or Play Store and seeing every game getting a gambling tag. That would be hilarious. And of course, confusing. So you can't give a game that gambling tag just because the game has gacha in it. And let's circle back to that growing concern that I mentioned at the start of the video. So people are afraid that this so-called gambling influence might encourage kids to overspend or have gambling addiction problems when they grow up. So I started playing mobile games when Brave Frontier just came out in 2013. So we were just discovering this concept of gacha. It wasn't really anything new because we've been playing a lot of MMOs and we kind of already got the concept of RNG being an integral part of the game. But it was more of like us hunting the monsters and, if you got lucky, they'd drop something rare. And then it was also used in like the upgrading of equipment. So if you were really unlucky or you weren't careful enough, your equipment would go boom and that was that. So even though they were completely free to play games, I think it was more of the players who got the money involved because some of the players who were really good at the game found out that other players were willing to pay good money just to save the time of hunting or upgrading. And, well, it was a really lucrative thing to do, but the developers were not making any money out of it, even though they were the ones who were paying for the servers, databases, and developing new content. And I might be wrong, but that's where they might have started to realize how valuable these stuff were. But for me, it was like more of the private servers that gave me this concept because you could buy stuff there and people were still paying a lot of money for that. It was more of like in the form of donations because you were helping these independent people to upkeep the server. So my friends and I went like, well, if that could be stable, how about this game that's backed by like this super big gaming developing company, right? So some of my friends and I started to spend on the game. and we did already have budgets for like console games and consoles that we bought. So it was still money for gaming, it was just spent on a different thing, which is not a new game, but it's stuff in a game that we're already playing. So I do understand a little bit of the addiction standpoint, where sometimes I'd be thinking if I had just one more unit of this level, I'd be able to complete a team of this standard. Or like, I really need this unit because it's like the meta right now, and if I didn't have it, I can get past this certain stage. So I go back to the gacha section and attempt to get that unit. And here's where it got me, because there was this once, I had a budget of like 100 pulls, but I still didn't get the unit I wanted, and I just got caught up in the spur of the moment and thought, I've already done so many pulls, my chances should be getting higher, and to stop now would be to waste all those attempts. I think this is vaguely known as the sunk cost fallacy, because I believe that the only way to make those first 100 pulls worth it was to keep going until I got what I was there for. And here's the thing. That was at a time before we had these fragment and guarantee systems, so there was no such thing as progression with gacha. Every pull had the same chance, and every pull, consecutive or not, was starting from square one. If I had a 0.5% chance of getting the unit I wanted, every pull I made had a 99.5% chance of me not getting it. And that wasn't gonna change no matter how many pulls I did. Well, thankfully, I didn't have to spend too much money to realize that. Also, in case you're wondering, I was studying at the time, but I was also working at Starbucks, so I did have some money to play around with. But anyway, even though the sunk cost fallacy is usually used on gacha, it actually works on the game as a whole. You see, for just about every online game, the meta will always be changing, and new things will be coming out, and players will want to try to keep up with it. There are a multitude of factors that can influence a player and cultivate a desire to want to get more stuff. If the game has PvP, and the player loses to an opponent that has new items or characters that the player does not have, it'll show the player how strong it is, and the player might try to get it too. Also, when a new character is released, there will always be a new event stage. Some games choose to promote the character by giving it an extreme advantage in the new event stages. It's actually there to give you a feel of what the new character can do, but some players they misunderstand, and in the heat of the moment, they start to think that the new character is OP. I know people would probably disagree with this, but I don't think it was the original intention to do that. It's just a really convenient side effect. But how about costumes? In most games, they don't even do anything for you in combat. Well, in some games they do, it's usually just really minor base stats that don't really impact the game at all. But despite all of that, costumes are really popular. Everyone just buys them, I don't know why. I buy them, I buy a lot of them. I guess for me, it's like a collector's mindset. You know, when I buy Legos, I buy the entire series. So it's either I buy all of them gradually, or I don't buy any one at all. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying gacha doesn't have a part to play in this. I'm just saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That's why there are games that are more successful than others, and that's also why there are games that shut down because not enough players were motivated to spend anything. Also, the concept of gacha is nothing new. It's been around since before mobile gaming, and it's been in mobile gaming for a really long time. So players nowadays, and even like in the past couple of years, have been well aware of the ramifications of the gacha system. Yes, it is easily accessible and seemingly affordable, but saying that all you need is $1 for a chance at getting something awesome does not work as well as it used to. Also, with sites like Reddit, YouTube, and even the forums of the games themselves, players know what to go for and what not to. Instead of spreading your limited in-game currency across multiple banners and getting minimal results, they find all the necessary information regarding any new content and focus all their resources on that one point. Doing this increases their chances at getting something that provides them with the growth that they are looking for and gives them less incentive to want to spend beyond that. And even though it's the huge whales and the compulsive overspenders who are getting targeted by the media, it's usually pretty exaggerated. But I don't disagree with them doing that, because it seems like the objective is to raise awareness on how people can incur massive credit card debts if they're not careful. One thing I realized while reading these IAP horror stories is that in most cases, it's an oversight by the parents, and they claim their kid didn't know they were spending real money. The silver lining here is that this is probably not going to lead to any gambling addiction problems. Just keep them away from mobile devices until they're old enough to understand what's what. Alternatively, parents can take the opportunity to show interest in what their kids are doing and bond with them while basically explaining what money is. Making sure the mobile device asks for a password before any purchase is also a good setting to keep, both for security and digital childproofing. If you use an iTunes or Google Play gift card as a registered payment method, You could even create an account without needing a credit card. To me, that's the easiest method, but that would still require a little bit of spending. So there is this article that I saw. This guy wrote this really detailed summary on like how you can create safe accounts for more than just Apple and Google. He even covered like Facebook and Amazon. And for some of the platforms, it does actually allow the kid to access the in-app stores, but when the kid tries to make a purchase, it will notify your account and you can choose to approve or deny the purchase. So one thing about the article, he does say stuff like register your main account on your device and then use your kid's device to like do whatever. So I guess some kids might still be too young to have a mobile device of their own. And for parents who are sharing your device with your kid, you could just log out of your account and log into theirs on the same device to finish all the steps that you have to, and that will save you a lot of money. But to wrap things up here, overspending can be caused by just about any kind of product. It's really up to the consumer to be aware of what's going on. I think a lot of these IAP horror stories are kind of missing the point because the blame seems to always go to the gaming developers, but blaming the gaming developers for overspending incurred through one's own actions is like blaming a bar for selling alcoholic beverages when being pulled over for a DUI. So what do you guys think? Should gacha be categorized as gambling? Also, in these cases of accidental or overspending, how much of the blame should fall on the gaming developers and how much should fall on the consumers? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember to gacha responsibly.